Let me be clear about something right from the start. The BMW X-M is the most polarizing vehicle to ever wear the M badge, and that's not hyperbole. When BMW's M division unveiled this SUV, the reaction from the enthusiast community ranged from cautious optimism to outright horror. Some called it visionary. Others called it a betrayal of everything the M badge represents. And here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody at BMW wants to admit publicly. Both sides have valid points. This is a vehicle that costs nearly $200,000, weighs as much as a small planet, and yet BMW insists it's a proper M car. So let's strip away the marketing speak and examine what the 2027 XM actually represents for BMW's future, and whether this radical SUV deserves the controversy it's generated. To understand why the XM exists and why it's so contentious, we need to talk about BMW's identity crisis. For decades, BMW built its reputation on a simple promise: the ultimate driving machine. The brand gave us the E30 M3, the E39 M5, the E46 M3 CSL. These were cars that prioritized driver engagement, handling precision, and that ineffable connection between driver and machine. They weren't always the fastest, they weren't always the most luxurious, but they always delivered on the promise of driving pleasure. Now, BMW is trying to reconcile that heritage with the brutal reality of modern automotive economics. The market demands SUVs. Wealthy buyers want electrification. Luxury customers expect technology and comfort. The X-M is BMW's answer to all of these pressures simultaneously. And that's precisely why it's such a complex, compromise, and yes, controversial vehicle. The XM represents BMW's biggest financial gamble since they launched the I sub-brand. This isn't just another M variant of an existing model. BMW created an entirely new platform, designed a completely unique body, and positioned it at the absolute pinnacle of their SUV range. The development costs were enormous, and BMW is betting that there's a substantial market of buyers who want an electrified performance SUV with luxury appointments that rival Bentley and Range Rover. It's a bet that could either establish a new category of ultra-luxury performance SUVs or become a cautionary tale about overreach. The stakes couldn't be higher. Now, let's address the design, because we can't talk about the XM without confronting its appearance. This is not a subtle vehicle. The front end features BMW's most aggressive interpretation of the kidney grille yet, flanked by split headlight elements that completely abandon the traditional BMW lighting signature. The design team calls it bold and futuristic. Critics call it overwrought and desperate. I've spent considerable time examining this vehicle in person, and here's what I've concluded. The design works better in 3 dimensions than in photographs, but it still requires significant adjustment for anyone familiar with BMW's design language. The split headlight design, in particular, marks a radical departure. BMW has used variations of the twin circular headlight motif since the 1960s. Even when they moved to more angular designs, there was always a visual connection to that heritage. The XM throws that out entirely. The upper LED elements handle daytime running lights and turn signals, while the main headlight units sit lower in the fascia. It's a design approach borrowed from certain Italian and French luxury cars, and it fundamentally changes the XM's face. Whether this represents BMW's future design direction or an experiment limited to this model remains to be seen. The kidney grille itself has grown to almost absurd proportions. At nearly twice the size of the grilles on current 3 Series or 5 Series models, it dominates the front end. BMW's designers argue that the large grille is functionally necessary, providing cooling for both the twin-turbo V8 and the hybrid system's power electronics. That's partially true, but it's also an aesthetic statement. This grille announces the XM's presence from a considerable distance, which is precisely the point. Subtlety was never part of the design brief. The side profile reveals the XM's substantial proportions. At over 5 meters long and more than 2 meters wide, this is a genuinely large SUV, but BMW's designers have managed to give it a lower, more aggressive stance than you'd expect. The roofline slopes dramatically toward the rear, sacrificing some headroom for visual drama. The shoulder line is heavily sculpted, with pronounced haunches over the rear wheels that emphasize width and power. It's muscular, almost brutish, in a way that previous BMW SUVs never were. The X5M and X6M both looked athletic, but the XM looks ready for confrontation. The rear design continues the controversial theme. The taillights are split, echoing the front headlight treatment, and the lower fascia features quad exhaust outlets in the traditional M-car arrangement. But it's the overall proportions that strike you. This is a tall, wide, imposing vehicle that looks nothing like traditional BMW design. And that's intentional. BMW wanted the XM to be instantly recognizable, to create its own visual identity separate from the rest of the lineup. Mission accomplished, for better or worse. Comparing the XM's design to BMW's evolution over the past 3 decades reveals just how far the brand has traveled. The E39 M5 from the late 1990s was elegantly understated, its M-car credentials revealed through subtle details. The current M5 is more aggressive but still recognizably a BMW. The XM exists in a different universe entirely. It's as if BMW's designers decided that incremental evolution was insufficient and opted for revolution instead. Whether that revolution succeeds depends entirely on whether buyers embrace or reject this new direction. Under that controversial skin sits the engineering that justifies the M badge, at least according to BMW. The powertrain is a plug-in hybrid system combining a twin-turbocharged 4.4-liter V8 with an electric motor integrated into the 8-speed automatic transmission. In the standard XM, this produces 644 horsepower and 590 pound-feet of torque. But BMW knew that wouldn't be enough to truly distinguish the XM, so they developed the XM Label Red, which cranks output to 738 horsepower and 735 pound-feet of torque. These are genuinely astounding numbers, putting the XM in the same performance category as dedicated supercars from a decade ago. The V8 itself is an evolution of BMW's familiar S63 engine, but with significant modifications to work in a hybrid application. Peak power arrives at 6,000 revolutions per minute, with maximum torque available from just 1,800 revolutions per minute and holding steady until 5,400 revolutions per minute. That flat torque curve is one of the key benefits of the hybrid system. The electric motor fills in the gaps, providing instant response and eliminating turbo lag almost entirely. The result is a power delivery that feels nothing like a traditional turbocharged engine. There's no waiting for the turbos to spool, no sudden rush of power, just relentless, linear acceleration from idle to redline. The electric motor itself produces 194 horsepower and 207 pound-feet of torque, and it's powered by a 29.5 kilowatt-hour battery pack mounted in the floor. This gives the XM an electric-only range of approximately 30 miles in ideal conditions, though real-world testing suggests 20 to 25 miles is more realistic. That's enough for short commutes or urban driving, but this isn't a vehicle you buy for its electric efficiency. The battery can be recharged in about 3.5 hours using a level 2 charger, or roughly 12 hours from a standard household outlet. Performance figures for the XM Label Red are impressive on paper. 0 to 60 miles per hour takes just 3.6 seconds, with the quarter-mile dispatched in 11.9 seconds. Top speed is electronically limited to 155 miles per hour, though BMW offers an M Drivers package that raises this to 177 miles per hour. These numbers put the XM ahead of the Porsche Cayenne Turbo SE Hybrid, which manages 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds, and well ahead of the Range Rover Sport SV, which takes 4.3 seconds. Only the Aston Martin DBX 707, at 3.3 seconds, beats the XM in straight-line acceleration, and that doesn't have the hybrid system's efficiency benefits. But here's where things get complicated. The XM weighs 2,755 kilograms in standard form, or just over 6,000 pounds. The Label Red variant adds another 30 kilograms. This is not a lightweight performance vehicle. For context, that's roughly 600 pounds heavier than a Porsche Cayenne Turbo SE Hybrid and nearly 1,000 pounds heavier than an X5M. Physics doesn't care about your horsepower figures. That mass has to be managed, controlled, and ultimately stopped. This is where BMW's chassis engineering either succeeds brilliantly or fails spectacularly, depending on your expectations. BMW fitted the XM with their most sophisticated chassis control systems. Adaptive M suspension provides continuously variable damping, with sensors monitoring body motion, steering input, and road conditions 1,000 times per second. The system can firm up the dampers in milliseconds when it detects hard cornering, or adjust them for maximum comfort on smooth highways. Active anti-roll bars reduce body roll in corners, while allowing the suspension to articulate freely over rough surfaces. Rear wheel steering, with up to 2.5 degrees of angle, helps rotate the XM through tight corners and improves low-speed maneuverability. The all-wheel drive system is rear-biased, sending most of the power to the rear axle under normal driving conditions. When slip is detected, or when maximum acceleration is requested, power can be redistributed forward almost instantaneously. In practice, this means the XM feels more like a rear-wheel drive car most of the time, with the front axle helping out only when necessary. It's a setup that prioritizes driving dynamics over all-weather capability, which tells you where BMW's priorities lie. Braking a 6,000-pound SUV from high speeds requires serious hardware. The XM comes standard with massive brake discs, 395mm front and 398mm rear, gripped by 6-piston calipers up front and single-piston calipers at the rear. Carbon ceramic brakes are optional, measuring 400mm front and rear, and they're essentially mandatory if you plan on any spirited driving. The standard brakes are adequate for normal use, but they'll fade quickly under sustained hard use. The carbon ceramics, while expensive at over $8,000, provide consistent, fade-free performance and save approximately 25 kilograms of unsprung weight. So how does this engineering translate to real-world driving? I've spent extensive time in the XM, both on public roads and on track, and the experience is genuinely contradictory. On smooth roads with long, sweeping corners, the XM can be genuinely impressive. The steering is well-weighted with decent feedback for a vehicle this large. The chassis remains flat through corners. The rear-wheel steering helps it change direction with surprising agility, and the power delivery is intoxicating. You can feel the systems working together, managing the weight and distributing power to maximize grip and minimize drama. In these conditions, you can almost believe BMW's claims about this being a proper M car. But on tighter, more technical roads, reality intrudes. The XM simply cannot defy physics. The weight is always there, always requiring management. You learn to brake earlier than you'd expect. You learn to be patient with steering inputs, waiting for the nose to tuck in before applying throttle. You learn to trust the electronic systems because they're the only thing keeping this behemoth composed. It's competent, even impressive in some ways, but it's not what I'd call engaging. There's no feedback loop between driver and machine, no sense of collaboration. The systems do the work, and you're just along for the ride. Comparing the XM to the legendary E39 M5 or even the more recent F90 M5 reveals the fundamental philosophical shift. Those cars invited you to participate, to be an active partner in the driving experience. The XM insulates you from that participation. It delivers speed and capability, but not involvement. For some buyers, that's perfectly fine. They want effortless performance, and the XM delivers that. But for enthusiasts who value the traditional M-car experience, the XM represents a departure that's difficult to accept. Inside, BMW has spared no expense on materials and craftsmanship. The dashboard is wrapped in leather with contrast stitching. The seats are deeply bolstered, offering excellent support even during hard cornering. The attention to detail is impressive, with every surface properly finished and every control operating with precision. This is where the XM's six-figure price tag starts to make sense. The level of luxury genuinely rivals Bentley and Range Rover, which are the XM's true competitors in terms of price and positioning. The front seats deserve special mention. They're among the best BMW has ever produced, with extensive adjustability including thigh support, lumbar support, and shoulder support. Heating, ventilation, and massage functions are all standard. The driving position is commanding without being too truck-like, and visibility is surprisingly good for such a large vehicle. The steering wheel is slightly too thick for my preference, but it's well-shaped and all the controls fall easily to hand. Technology integration is comprehensive, perhaps overly so. The curved display panel combines a 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster with a 14.9-inch central touchscreen running BMW's latest iDrive 8.5 system. The interface is generally intuitive, though some functions are buried several menus deep. Voice control works reasonably well for common commands, and the augmented reality navigation is genuinely useful in unfamiliar areas. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are standard, though they run in a window rather than taking over the entire display. The Bowers & Wilkins Diamond Surround Sound System is optional but highly recommended. With 1,500 watts of power distributed through 20 speakers, it transforms the cabin into a concert hall. The sound quality is exceptional, with crystal clear highs and deep controlled bass. It's one of the better automotive audio systems available at any price point, and given the XM's luxury positioning, it should be considered mandatory equipment. Rear seat accommodations are generous, with adequate legroom for adults, even when the front seats are positioned for taller drivers. The seats themselves are well-shaped and supportive, though they lack the extensive adjustability of the front seats. Climate controls are separate for rear passengers, and there are USB-C charging ports and storage cubbies. The sloping roofline does compromise headroom slightly, but most adults should be comfortable. Where the XM falls short is in cargo capacity. With the rear seats in place, you get just 527 liters of space, expanding to 1,820 liters with the seats folded. That's significantly less than an X5 or X7, and it's a direct consequence of the sloping roofline and the battery pack eating into floor space. Real-world fuel economy is where the XM's hybrid pretensions fall apart. On electric power alone, you'll get your 20 to 25 miles. But then you're running a twin-turbo V8 that's hauling 6,000 pounds. EPA estimates suggest 19 miles per gallon combined when running in hybrid mode, but spirited driving will drop that into the low teens quickly. On a long highway run at 75 miles per hour, expect around 22 miles per gallon. In mixed driving with a discharged battery and occasional full-throttle acceleration, 14 to 16 miles per gallon is realistic. These aren't terrible numbers for a 738 horsepower SUV, but they're not great either, especially compared to the Cayenne Turbo SE Hybrid, which manages slightly better efficiency despite similar performance. Maintenance and ownership costs deserve serious consideration at this price point. BMW includes free scheduled maintenance for 3 years or 36,000 miles, which covers oil changes and routine servicing. But beyond that, you're looking at typical BMW ownership costs, which means expensive. The hybrid system adds complexity and potential failure points. Battery replacement, should it become necessary outside of warranty, will be eye-wateringly expensive. The carbon ceramic brakes, while durable, cost thousands to replace when they eventually wear out. And depreciation on luxury performance SUVs is brutal. Expect the XM to lose 40 to 50% of its value in the first 3 years, which means a $185,000 label red will be worth perhaps $90,000 to $100,000 after 3 years. Insurance costs will be substantial as well. The XM's performance credentials and high repair costs mean premiums will rival exotic sports cars. Budget at least $3,000 to $5,000 annually for comprehensive coverage, depending on your location and driving record. These are costs that matter, even to buyers in this price range, and they're worth factoring into the total ownership equation. So where does the XM fit in BMW's lineup and the broader luxury performance SUV segment? It sits above the X5M and X6M in price and positioning, but it doesn't really replace them. Those vehicles still exist for buyers who want M-car performance in a more conventional package. The XM is positioned as BMW's halo SUV, the ultimate expression of what's possible when engineering and luxury converge. It competes directly with the Range Rover Sport SV, the Porsche Cayenne Turbo SE Hybrid, the Aston Martin DBX 707, and to some extent, the Bentley Bentayga Speed. These are all vehicles designed for wealthy buyers who want performance and luxury without compromise. The target customer is someone who likely owns multiple vehicles, values the latest technology, appreciates BMW's heritage but isn't constrained by it, and wants something distinctive and controversial. This isn't a vehicle for the purist who treasures the E46 M3. It's for someone who sees cars as status symbols and technology showcases, who appreciates performance but prioritizes comfort and luxury. BMW's market research suggests there are enough of these buyers to justify the XM's existence, and early sales figures seem to support that thesis, though it's too early to declare the vehicle a commercial success. Pricing strategy is aggressive. The base XM starts at $159,000, while the label red commands $185,000. With options, you can easily exceed $200,000. That's Bentley Bentayga territory. And it raises the question of whether buyers will pay BMW prices for Bentley-level vehicles. The early answer seems to be yes, at least in sufficient numbers. But this is a market segment where brand prestige matters enormously, and BMW has historically struggled to command ultra-luxury prices. Now, let's address the electrification question that haunts every discussion of the X-am. This vehicle's plug-in hybrid system is simultaneously its most forward-thinking feature and its most cynical element. On one hand, BMW is genuinely investing in electrification technology and providing buyers with options beyond pure internal combustion. The ability to drive 20 miles on electric power alone has real value for some use cases. On the other hand, let's be honest about what this is. A compliance play that allows BMW to meet emissions regulations while still selling high-performance V8 vehicles. The X-am's hybrid system isn't primarily about environmental responsibility. It's about regulatory compliance and maintaining access to markets with strict emission standards. The future of the V8 engine is uncertain, and the X-am represents one possible path forward. By pairing a traditional performance engine with electric assistance, manufacturers can continue offering the power and character that enthusiasts value while meeting increasingly stringent efficiency requirements. But this is a temporary solution, a bridge technology. Within the next decade, vehicles like the X-am will likely be fully electric, and the V8 will be relegated to special edition models or eliminated entirely. The X-am is both a celebration of the V8's capabilities and an acknowledgement of its limited future. BMW's broader electrification strategy includes the upcoming fully electric M vehicles, which will deliver comparable performance without the compromises inherent in hybrid systems. The X-am exists in this transition period, trying to serve multiple masters simultaneously. It's not fully committed to electrification, but it's not a pure internal combustion vehicle either. This compromise position is arguably the worst of both worlds. You get the complexity and weight of a hybrid system without significant efficiency benefits, and you sacrifice the purity and engagement of a dedicated performance vehicle. So after examining the X-am from every angle, after driving it extensively in various conditions, after considering its place in BMW's history and its role in the brand's future, what's the verdict? The honest answer is complicated because the X-am itself is complicated. This is not a bad vehicle. The engineering is sophisticated, the performance is impressive, the luxury appointments are genuinely world-class, and BMW has succeeded in creating something distinctive and memorable. But whether it's a good vehicle depends entirely on what you value and what you expect from the M badge. If you're a traditional BMW enthusiast, someone who values driver engagement, hydraulic steering feel, naturally aspirated engines, and the connection between driver and machine, the X-am will disappoint you. This is not that kind of M car. It prioritizes comfort and technology over involvement, and it insulates rather than connects. The weight is always present, always compromising the driving experience in ways that no amount of clever engineering can fully overcome. For purists, the X-am represents everything wrong with modern BMW, a departure from the principles that made the M division legendary. But if you're a buyer who wants the latest technology, appreciates effortless performance, values luxury and comfort, and isn't constrained by nostalgia for BMW's past, the X-am makes considerably more sense. It delivers genuine capability, impressive straight-line performance, and a level of luxury that rivals anything in its class. The hybrid system, while not particularly efficient, provides useful electric-only range for short trips and helps reduce emissions in urban environments. For this buyer, the X-am represents progress, BMW's evolution to meet modern market demands. The question of whether BMW has correctly identified a market gap is still being answered. Early sales suggest there is indeed demand for ultra-luxury performance SUVs at this price point, though whether that demand is sustainable remains uncertain. The X-am faces intense competition from established players like Porsche and Range Rover, and newer entrants like Aston Martin. BMW's brand prestige at this price point is untested, and buyers in this segment are notoriously fickle. Looking at the X-am's place in automotive history, I suspect it will be remembered as a pivotal vehicle, though whether that's positive or negative depends on what comes next. If BMW continues down this path, prioritizing technology and luxury over driver engagement, the X-am will be seen as the turning point where the M division fundamentally changed its mission. If BMW course corrects and returns to more focused, driver-centered vehicles, the X-am will be viewed as an interesting experiment that didn't define the brand's future. Either way, it's impossible to ignore. Love it or hate it, the X-am demands a reaction, and that alone makes it significant. For potential buyers considering the XM, here's my recommendation. If you're cross-shopping this with a Cayenne Turbo SE hybrid, drive both extensively. The Porsche is more composed dynamically, more refined, and likely more reliable long-term. If you're considering the Range Rover Sport SV, recognize that the Range Rover offers superior off-road capability and arguably more presence, though the BMW has better driving dynamics. If the Aston Martin DBX 707 is on your list, understand that you're paying for exclusivity and beauty rather than ultimate capability. The XM is best suited for someone who specifically wants a BMW, who values the brand's heritage and technology, who appreciates the controversial styling rather than being repelled by it.